Again, people look at me and they think, well, you were a football coach and you coached, and I did coach, because when you look like me, they make you coach.
Yeah.
But I really didn't want to coach. I just wanted to teach. And so teaching was the kind of the direction my life was going to go. It was safe. My parents were behind it. My in-laws were behind it. My wife was behind it because she was a teacher. But I knew that a crossroads was coming.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Less Than Obvious podcast. I'm your host, Jim McDonald. Last week, I talked to Ryan Spencer, who set aside the idea of his dream job and went in an entirely different direction. By coincidence, this week's guest is someone who had that dream job, but decided to make his own shift away from the safe and predictable and go a completely different way. My guest is Matt Reynolds. He is currently the owner of the relatively new business, Starting Strength Online Coaching, but that wasn't really his first pivot. I'm sure that some of you in the strength and fitness world are going to react either positively or negatively when I say starting strength. I have to tell you, I had some misconceptions myself. There's some things I didn't quite understand. So we got into that, and Matt explained it in a way that I can at least understand it at this point, and I understand why this was part of the path that he ultimately chose. I caught up with Matt during his recent visit to San Francisco. We met in an Irish pub off of Union Square, which seemed like a really great idea at the time, considering I know that we're both into whiskey. But I realized afterwards that it was really loud and there was a lot of music playing and stuff. We recorded anyway. I compensated for that as much as I could in the future. I will use Irish pubs for their intended purpose, which is drinking, and record in some quieter places. Anyway, let's jump into the conversation.
Let's roll back just for a second. You were talking about having been a school teacher.
Yeah.
And at what point did you decide I don't want to be a school teacher anymore?
I was always a smart kid in high school, junior high school, growing up. And if you had asked someone who went to school with me, one, I was utterly forgettable. I was painfully average at best.
But you're a big dude. I mean,
I wasn't.
You wasn't?
Yeah, no, I graduated. So I'm 6'1" and about 280 now.
Uh-huh.
I graduated at 6'1", 155.
Oh my God.
So I was I was skinny. If you look at like my wrists and ankles are really small. I don't have a big bone structure. I'm big now. I've worked for years to put on body weight. And so academia was going to be where the career was.
Okay.
Because that's what I was good at. I was good at school. I was good at testing. I've always been a fairly eloquent speaker, for lack of trying to sound arrogant. I think that helps me more today now that I look like a big giant meathead. But back then it just seemed appropriate. Yeah. I spoke the way I looked. And so, so I ended up becoming a school teacher. I actually, my first 2.5 years of college were for architecture. And I switched and moved into education, which was really a move. My wife was a couple years older than me, and she was a teacher or about to finish up her degree to become a teacher. Uh-huh. And it seemed like a good career for two people, husband and wife, who were going to have kids. You would teach, especially once your kids were school age, while they were in school. You'd all get the summer off together. Those sorts of things seemed like it would work well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was wired decently for business, but I just wasn't, I didn't really have a fire I wasn't super passionate about anything in particular that would drive business, other than I had been into strength training. And so the conversion into strength training out of high school, I was a very average athlete. I was always sort of the last starter on the team. There were always several people on the bench that I started ahead of that I knew were better than me. I worked really hard, and usually the coaches liked me, and so I would start, but I was never a star of any team. I was just very average. However, I was super competitive, and so I got into college, wasn't good enough to play college sports, and I needed a competitive outlet. And so I discovered powerlifting from reading magazines on T-Mag, T-Nation, things like that. Powerlifting just became the hobby for a while I continued to work as a teacher.
This is the first time that Matt and I had actually met in person. My Facebook says that we became friends back in 2008. I know that we had talked a few times on the Messenger over the years, and more recently he let me know that he was coming out to California and wanted to try to get together. As you can tell from listening to him so far, he's a bright, engaging guy with a lot of energy. I actually had a difficult time picturing him as a as a teacher, someone in an academic career, a steady, safe career where maybe nothing exciting ever happens. But maybe you don't need that from your career. Maybe that's what he was thinking.
There were things about the education world, certainly, that I had major problems with public education and the way they were done. And I think when you're young, you got this idea that I'm going to reform things. I'm a reformer and I can fix this stuff. And the problem was in public education for me is that as someone who is competitive to a fault, like I'm the guy that used to play ping pong with my brother in the garage, and if he won, I was going to try to decapitate him with my ping pong paddle, right? Or I'm the guy that had the front yard in the neighborhood that you're like a 70-year-old man lives there because I want the best front yard in the neighborhood because, you know, damn it, I'm not going to let somebody else have a nicer yard than me. Like I have a problem. It's actually not, it's not a positive thing in my personality. So you take a guy that's that competitive,
right,
and you put him in a public school system where there is zero competition among school districts to be better than other school districts.
right.
There's zero competition among teachers. The best teacher and the worst teacher in the building are paid identical money.
Right. Yeah. No merit.
Yeah, there's no corporate ladder to climb. And by the way, I don't think I'm wired to climb a corporate ladder either. Now looking back, as
join the club.
Yeah, as a relatively successful businessman at this point. But I knew pretty quick. By the time I finished my master's degree, I knew I wasn't going to be a principal. So at the point that I was graduating with a master's to be a principal, I knew I was never going to be one. It wasn't going to happen.
Just because of the environment, or because?
Yeah, I think there was this. I get up early every day. I've always been kind of an early riser, early to bed, early rise kind of guy. I'm a very positive, encouraging guy. It drives my wife nuts. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning now, and I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And my alarm would go off every morning before school, and I would fill my room with such profanity every day that my alarm clock went off because I had to go and teach school again.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about the teaching. I actually really enjoyed teaching. That's the thing I loved. It was all the other stuff I couldn't stand. And so it was the politics and the hoops and the Common Core curriculum, the government hoops that you had to jump through, and the administration and the parents and the school board and all that sort of stuff. And so I got to the point where I just wanted to teach. And I knew I was a good teacher. I got into teaching. Again, people look at me and they think, well, you were a football coach and you coached. And I did coach because when you look like me, they make you coach.
Yeah.
But I really didn't want to coach. I just wanted to teach. And so teaching was the kind of the direction my life was going to go. It was safe. My parents were behind it. My in-laws were behind it. My wife was behind it because she was a teacher. But I knew that a crossroads was coming. In teaching, you had the rule of 80. So they take your age plus the number of years you've taught, and when that combined number is 80, you can retire.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that's how it works.
Yeah, and
that's interesting.
So I started to do the math, and I'm like, oh my God, I got another 30 years of this stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And I can't do this for 30 more years. What am I going to do?
Tough sledding.
Yeah, I'm getting older, and I've taught now almost a decade, and I'm not the young reformer, change the world. So I still love to teach, I still love kids, but it's more about changing the life of that one kid or those two kids. It wasn't about reforming the system as a whole. And so that started to grate on me and wear me down.
So for those of us keeping score, that was Matt's first pivot, the mental pivot away from the idea that he would be a public school educator, either a teacher or principal, until he retired. That was just not a viable option for him. What he had to do at that point was decide what was next, and it would take some time to figure that out. As you're going to find out, he had already opened a gym, but it was really more of a hobby gym, and it was not capable of replacing his income at this point in time.
I opened a gym in 2008 with no delusions of grandeur at all. It was not even supposed to be a business. We had 20 guys come into my 2-car garage, and my wife was pregnant, and she didn't want to park her car on the ice out in the driveway anymore, and we had to figure out what to do.
Right.
And so we rented an industrial building, no heat, no air conditioning, one bathroom, windows broken out in the industrial building. It was like, I think it was $500 a month rent or something. It was like 10,000 square feet though. So
that's
it was a huge,
amazing.
Yeah, we could, I remember we could do like strongman yoke runs and all that sort of stuff. And I should also say, I got into competitive powerlifting in 2001, and I was not exceptionally gifted at that either, but I poured myself into it, and because it became both my competitive outlet and the primary stress reliever in my life. I ended up doing pretty well at it. I wasn't a world-class level athlete, but I totaled elite in 3 different weight classes and had totaled elite both back then in the early 2000s. Everybody used competitive gear, right? So squat suits and bench shirts.
Yep.
But had also done it raw, so I had a decent amount of raw strength. And again, lots of guys were stronger than me. Guys with strong backs and legs are a dime a dozen. I was just one of those guys. But really enjoyed it. And I got to 2005 and just got a little bit tired of training for just 3 specific lifts. I want a little bit more variation, but I like to train heavy. And so I turned my attention to strongman, and I started collecting equipment and building equipment and buying equipment. And I competed in strongman starting in 2005. It was the only thing I've ever done in my life that I was naturally pretty good at. So my first competition was Kansas Strongest Man, and I did not have a great day, and I still won. And I thought, okay, I might be better than this at powerlifting. I'm tall, and it's strongman kind of benefits a guy that's taller.
Yeah.
But then I also saw that I had this problem where I weighed 265, and strongman in the professional ranks is essentially 2 sizes.
Yeah.
There are the super heavies. You think Brian Shaw, 6'7", 440.
Right.
And the lightweights, which have to weigh 105 kilos, are 231.
Right.
And here I'm stuck in no man's land, 265, 270 pounds. And so I'm looking at my bone structure of these tiny little ankles and these tiny little wrists, even though I'm 6'1", and even though I weigh 270 pounds, I go, man, I can't compete with 6'5", 6'7", 400 pounds. I can't do it. And can I cut 30, 40 pounds and make 231? And again, they've got a 24-hour weigh-in, and just like powerlifting did, and I'd gotten pretty good at making the 242 class, so I thought, all right, I can do this. So I spent all that winter learning how to cut weight. Went to my first Pro-Am, which was a big world strongman challenge. Zydrunas Savickas was there, Brian Shaw, who was still an amateur there, and weighed about 275, by the way, at the time. And I was actually beaten out for my pro card by Brian Shaw's training partner, Bo Gertz, great guy, and developed a friendship with Brian and Bo at that point that's really lasted. Now we're old. And did well, took second, was in first through 3 or 4 of the events, got to a Conan's wheel, had never done it, and didn't do very well, ended up taking second. There was one more Pro-Am that year, and it was a Utah Strongest Man, and America's Strongest Man was there, and all the big boys were there, and Jesse Morundi and guys that are kind of like big name stuff. I was broke. We were teachers. I had to convince my wife I need to fly to Salt Lake City, Utah, and stay there for 5 days and cut weight, which you always turn into your complete jerk when you're trying to cut 20 pounds of cutting water and sitting in saunas. And she agreed, and she said, "Hey, if you don't win your pro card on this trip, that's it. This is over."
It's over. Yeah.
And so I went.
The dream ends.
Yeah.
So Matt was really up against it here. He needed to be able to win this competition, win his pro card, in order to keep using strongman the way he had been using it as his competitive outlet, as his way to become better all the time. Luckily for him, he had a good day.
By the time the stones came around, I only had to load 1 stone to win the whole thing. And I called my wife and said, "I'm gonna win." I like on my worst day ever, I could tear a bicep and I can load the first stone, and that's all I have to load. Any points, and I'll be okay. And so I won my pro card, and then competed on the professional strongman circuit from 2006 through 2009. 2008 is when I opened Strong Gym and continued mostly just to teach and be a dad and a husband. And that, again, nothing really had ever even entered my mind that it would change my career at some point. So I finished my master's in 2009. The gym had accidentally started growing really well. 2009 was kind of this era where CrossFit had exploded. We definitely were not a CrossFit, but all of a sudden you were getting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people exposed to barbells. It was less about, Body by Jake, fold it up and put it underneath your bed and forget about it. Something happened in the fitness world, really even stuff with like Insanity and P90X and stuff that we would say that's not really at all what we do.
Right.
But something happened in the fitness world where people started to realize it has to be hard. And before that, it didn't have to be hard. Of course, you see the way the domino effect occurred into growing strongman and powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting from that. And I think we benefited from that. I think we were good coaches. We were the best coaches in our town. We weren't nearly the coaches we are now, but we were good coaches and we were good lifters, and the atmosphere was as close to a West Side barbell sort of atmosphere that you could get in the Midwest. However, it was not a gym made up of felons, and no diss on West Side. It just,
I feel you.
The reason West Side has been so successful, I've always argued, well, I think Louis is maybe crazy now, was the father of modern powerlifting and was a genius in his day,
Yeah.
and that the programming was something different and new nobody had seen. To me, programming was always secondary to why Westside was good. It was the atmosphere.
Right.
That's why Westside was great, right?
Let's take just a second to talk about Westside Barbell. It is located in Columbus, Ohio. It is the most famous powerlifting gym in the world. It is owned by Louis Simmons. At Westside, they lift in a conjugate style. I don't want to get into the description, but let's just say that it is dramatically different than what we're talking about with Matt in terms of starting strength. The gym is free. If Louis finds that you are worthy, your worth is judged by what you can lift and what he thinks you're going to be able to lift in the future. It doesn't really have much to do with your background at all. So let's say that there have been times, and maybe now even, that members of the gym have had run-ins with the law. It's a gym that really runs on attitude. Some people use the expression hardcore, but I'm not sure that that means much anymore.
They could have trained like the Bulgarians and not like the Soviets, and they still would have been awesome because of who was there in the atmosphere, right? So we made several trips out to Westside and trained there and saw that. I just wanted to figure out how to convince normal people to train like powerlifters, which is really hard. You don't see that. And so you really saw this, there was this incredible polarization among gyms where gyms were either like Westside, they were dirty and warehouse and dusty and gross, or they were frou-frou, 24-hour fitness, Planet Fitness, Anytime Fitness, name your fill-in-the-blank fitness gym. And I wanted something in the middle, which was nice, but with a hardcore style of training. And so we started to push that direction, and people just started showing up to the gym. We had no money. We took all the money we had, and we just bought equipment with it, and we paid ourselves nothing. I was at an advantage because my business partner had just been medically discharged from the Navy with really bad Crohn's disease. So he was on full disability from the Navy. He was a kid. He was like 19. And I was a full-time teacher, so we both had we made enough money on the side that we were able to take all the money that the gym made and just put it back in the gym. Save the money, or in the beginning there was no saving, it was just buying more
spending,
equipment, buying more equipment, buying barbells, whatever. And the gym started growing, and by the time I finished my master's, I realized this might actually be a viable business at some point. And so I started to really pour into business books, read every business book I get my hands on. I've read a ton of bad ones and a couple good ones. And
what did you read that was good?
E-Myth is the best business book I've ever read for people
say that, yeah.
It's incredible. I like, because what we do in the gym is service industry, so service industry books. So there's a book that had a big impact on me called Delivering Happiness, which is the story of Zappos, the shoe company.
Yeah.
So that company has won many times, like the best customer service company in the world, which is interesting because it's not a service industry company. It's an online shoe retailer.
Right, it's a product company.
Yeah, so you go, how does an online shoe retailer have the best service? And so that book was all about company culture and setting core values and principles and things like that.
Differentiation, that kind of thing.
So I started doing that, and then also just understanding the way business worked and taxes and accountants and insurance and attorneys, and I started to really kind of dive into that stuff. So I understood things that I knew. I knew there were other people out there who had more money than me, and there were other people out there who were smarter than me, but I wasn't going to let anybody outwork me or outread me or out-educate me. And so I started reading everything I could. I started spending a lot of time writing a business plan, not for a bank, but for myself. I needed a business plan to define who are we, how are we different, how are we going to differentiate ourselves in the market, and was able to do that, and it kind of guided the way. And by the time we continued to grow, we moved from our first location to our second location. We outgrew the second location, moved to the third location. We outgrew the third location, and that's when we made the massive jump. We bought a 15,000 square foot retail standalone building at auction, and did a little under $700,000 renovation to the building. We did all of it debt free.
Wow.
We paid for it with the gym money, plus we had brought in a third owner. And so they evaluated the company, and for what he had to buy in for, paid for a bunch of that sort of renovation. And
so basically like a stock.
Yeah, essentially. And so we took, that's exactly right. And so, of course, we didn't pay ourselves any of that money. All the money he put into the gym what theoretically paid us, we put that back in the gym, so that increased the value of the gym by 50% on the day we brought him in.
Right.
And I put all my eggs in one basket, and I quit my teaching job at the end of 2012, and we opened at the beginning of the year 2013, and didn't know if it was going to work. Had a big grand opening, and had talked about it, and had a decent following on Facebook and social media at that point. And we had 275 people sign up in the first 24 hours.
Holy crap.
And I went home that first night and walked downstairs into my basement and sat on my recliner and started audibly sobbing, like noise, right? Like a little kid, because I knew it was going to work. Because I'd spent all my life and all my education and $100,000 in education bills to be a teacher, and to leave all of it to do this. And nobody makes any money in the gym. The gym industry is a horrible industry to try to make money.
It's really
nobody's
awful
making money.
unless you can get people paying and staying away from the gym.
That's right. It's exactly right. Yeah. So unless you do the Planet Fitness model, which it's $10 a month, and only 4% of the people who have memberships actually show up.
Right.
Otherwise, it's a terrible model. The thing we had that nobody else had was we had an incredible facility that was totally debt-free. So our overhead, once we had the facility, was low. We had 3 owners, and so we worked 1 million hours a week because we were 3 owners. We just divided up. We didn't have to have a big payroll or big employees. That first year was the best financial year of my life, and would be the best financial year of my life for several more years. I didn't make more money the next several years personally, because as the gym continued to grow, and it did, I had to start hiring people. And so now I got a payroll of 16 people at that gym, and means I don't get to put as much money in my pocket, but I also don't have to work 70 hours a week anymore. I only get to work 22 hours a week, which is a pretty good deal.
So at this point, I guess you could say that the second pivot occurred or was completed, because now he had replaced his income as a teacher. He had a fulfilling job, something he was interested in doing. What we haven't heard to this point is that there was another revenue stream that he was working at the time, and there was a drastic change coming that he never expected.
I got to the point where running the gym was nice. It was great. It was so much better than being a teacher. And the gym had grown, and that garnered quite a bit of respect in the fitness industry. I started getting asked to be on. I got interviewed by the Art of Manliness podcast, which is a huge, 350,000 a week downloads. I was on Barbell Business. I was on Power Athlete. All those guys. And we started talking about the gym and what that looked like and how it grew. And then I at the end of 2015, I sold the gym. And it wasn't a super enjoyable process.
So what prompted that, though?
So the third owner we had brought into the gym, caveat, I have to be careful what I say, right, with law and
I understand that, and I know a good way around that. So
yes, so I can do it and do it well, I think. But just so if it feels like I'm being a little not telling every detail, it's because I can't tell every detail. But in general, the third owner that we had brought in 2011 had a family that was wealthy, and I think he was tired of sharing responsibilities with other owners and wanted to basically drive the chariot on his own. And it's probably fair to say. And every time you make a decision, when there's 3 owners, you have to sit down and have a meeting and decide, and you have to vote. And
if you end up 2 against 1, then
which it usually was, and it was usually the 2 of us that got bought out. And so he made a push to buy us out. We weren't real happy with that, but we got a great attorney, and we worked through it, and we got a good deal, and we couldn't pass it up. For about 6 weeks, the process of selling the business, I thought I was going to have a stroke. It was tough. Because you're selling your baby. You're selling the thing that you built and left your career for, and everything that, and you know they're going to change it. Even though, actually, he probably changed it less than other people would because he co-owned the business as it was. And but still, it's not yours anymore. It was a very emotionally trying time.
So let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
What do you think the most important components of a good business relationship that's going to last are?
So someone still has to be the chief executive officer. Somebody's got to be a CEO. Multiple CEOs doesn't work. And the reason that the other 2 of us worked so well together for so long, my other business partner, his name is William McNeely, great guy, still great friends with him, incredible coach, total people person. He's one of those guys that you've never met anybody, nobody's ever said anything bad about Will ever because he's so likable. And so he was the people person in the gym and the type B guy, and I was the type A driven managerial executive. And we work great together because I'm very high strung. I was joking earlier about my butthole's all puckered up real tight. And it's hard for me to relax. I'm very task oriented and goal oriented. And because of that, if I'm not careful, I do have empathy and sympathize with my clients and other people. I just forget to tell them that I do, because if there's a problem, I'm one of those guys that let's go fix the problem. And sometimes people just need a hug and they just want to know that you care.
Right.
And I'm trying to show them that I care by fixing let's just get to the solution. And so it worked incredibly well between Will and I for a long time, because he was the likable, empathetic, great coach. Just everybody loved this guy, and I could basically drive the helm. It worked. And so when we brought in the third owner, there was some rub there that made it difficult. So one of the things I would say, I get asked this a lot, if you're in business, in a business partnership with somebody else, you need to find somebody else whose personality is not like yours. If they're like yours, you're going to rub up against each other with these. You need to find somebody. By the way, I think it's the exact same thing in marriage. Exactly, right? So my wife is not type A at all. I'm not saying that two type A people can't work together. They can. But you tend to have somebody who's going to be the more high-strung, more type A, and the other one's going to be more laid-back, more easygoing. I'm okay with the decisions that you make. That's worked really well, both in my marriage and in my business partnership.
And your first business partner was bought into the way things were working.
Absolutely.
And if things were going in a direction he was not comfortable with, it was easy for him to talk to you and say, hey, I'm not comfortable with that,
yes,
or whatever. It's not like he was run over. It's just that he expressed it to you directly, and you guys dealt with however it went.
Absolutely. So we had lots of meetings. He and I would have lots of meetings where we talk about how's it going, what do we need to change, what do we need to do better, and he could. It was a safe place for him to express his opinions and his thoughts to me. Then he was totally okay within me being the face of the franchise and the voice of the business, say this is what we're going to do. He didn't need the bully pulpit, and I did. I wish I maybe on some level wish I didn't have to have that all the time. I'm not one of those guys that seeks it, so attention seeking. It's not that. It's that I have always been very much a natural born leader, even as a kid. I'm perfectly confident with the ability I've been given to make decisions. And that doesn't mean that my decisions are always going to be right. I also have very little pride when it comes to if I make a wrong decision, I have no problem admitting fault, apologizing, and moving on. But what I don't do is I don't go, oh my God, I don't know what to do, and I don't waffle back and forth. I'm just like, listen, I think this is right. I'm always going to try to make the right decision. Once I think I know what the right decision is, let's go. Let's move right now. And most of the time it is, and sometimes it's not. When it's not, you redirect and go.
Something that I only recently became aware of is that we talk about fight or flight responses, and there's sort of a third state that people don't talk about, and that's freeze.
Yep.
And that's what you're talking about not ever getting into.
Nope, I don't. I'm a fast decision maker.
Yeah.
My little brother runs a massive, massive, multi-$100 million insurance software company, and he's exactly like me there. He's like, so he co-owns it with my cousin actually, and the two of them, they own virtually all the business, and they have these businesses. They'll sit down over lunch and they make nearly billion-dollar decisions in 3 minutes. Because they're like, look, what do we? This time is money we're going to waste. Now they're educated decisions and they're wise decisions. They use logic and reason. And I think that's another thing that, at times, is very, very much an advantage to me, and at times puts me at fault. I am completely a logical and reasonable thinker to a fault. I will never let emotions drive a decision. It doesn't mean I'm not emotional. As a matter of fact, people have seen me I get choked up at stuff all the time. I can tear up and get choked up at things. But getting choked up and being emotional doesn't mean that emotion drives a decision I'm going to make. So it's even hard for me it's been hard for me to communicate that to my staff or my wife or my kids sometimes. I go, look, daddy or husband or boss I'm always going to do my best to choose right. I'm going to make the right decision. Meaning, if there's a decision that will make me less money, but it's the right one, It's the right one for the clients. It's the right one for my staff. It's the right one for the business. I'm going to make the right decision if it's not best for me. And I think they trust me in that, and I'm able to do that because I don't let emotions drive my decisions. And so I'm certainly not stoic to the point that I don't have emotions. I am. As a matter of fact, I think I'm probably even maybe more emotional than your standard guy. Just don't let it drive my decision making. So because of that, I'm able to take logic and reason and wisdom and make decisions pretty quick and go. And then I'm all in. Here's what we're doing. Let's go.
And the unexpected pivot arrives, kind of like a fate card in a board game. Suddenly, everything's changed. He's got some idea of what he might want to do next, but he's not honestly sold on it. And as you'll see, he had to work through a process to figure out where to go next.
And so the business grew, and we were able to sell it and make a big profit at the end of 2015. I didn't have to work right away. It certainly wasn't enough money to live off of the rest of my life.
But it gave you a cushion, gave you some
it was enough
running
time
room.
that I go, what are we going to do? And so my original plan was to actually come back to Springfield, Missouri, where the gym was, and open a small, really high-end boutique strength training facility, kind of a high-end executive barbell club.
Okay.
Leather furniture and mahogany shelves and a whiskey bar and super nice equipment and charge a premium rate. When I sold the business, the first thing I did, this was in first week of December of 15, and I had my wife book a Airbnb. We went as far south as we could go. With my daughters didn't have passports, so we went to South Padre Island because as far as you go.
Yeah.
I went for a month. We called our family. We said, we're not going to be home for Christmas. I'm sorry. And we're really close to our family, Midwestern family, kind of traditional. So we're not going to be home for Christmas. We're not going to be home for New Year's. We got to get out of here. And they knew that it had been very stressful on us to sell this big business. And so we went down there, and I just went down there to figure stuff out. And for about 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of vacation, I was still very high strung. Probably drank a little too much whiskey. It's the only time in my life I've was drinking whiskey to take an edge off, which isn't a safe place to be.
No, it's not.
And I'm not wired that way either, right? I've never
you don't
had a
enjoy
problem.
it as much either.
No,
to tell you the truth.
I just couldn't relax. I couldn't relax.
Yeah.
And it took a few weeks. I'm very thankful that we were able to go I think we went for a full month. If I'd only gone for 2 weeks, I would have come home and still been stressed. And so after my mind started thinking a little more clear, I started to talk to the people that were really mentors to me at that point. And like Brett McKay from Art of Manliness, he's one of my closest friends now and a good mentor of mine. We talk every day. My brother, and I've got other people, and I called him and started talking to him about what I should do. My brother said, well, how are you doing with online coaching? How much money are you making online coaching? And it was good. It was enough to live off of already. But again, I'm kind of wired to grow business at this point. And so I just didn't see how I could scale online coaching because at some point there's only so much of me. And the thing that my online coaching did that was really sort of different than what most of the other people were doing in online coaching is that I had my clients video every heavy barbell set they did of every single workout, and I broke every single video down like X's and O's, like a football, every single day, right? And so how many clients can you have before you're out of time? You can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And so he said, look, I think you should really look into sticking with online coaching. The problem with opening up this executive barbell club boutique sort of place is that you're tied back to a physical location. And at this point, I neglected to even mention this in the story. I've been a head staff coach for Mark Ripito in starting strength seminars since 2010. And so about once a month, I'm traveling to a different city in the United States, and we do starting strength seminars. And I like to travel. It's amazing to me that I've been able to travel and see really the entire world and every major city in the United States because I know how to teach people how to squat.
Right.
But that's crazy, you know? And so, I get paid well, and Ripito is another one of those mentor guys. He's very much like he comes across. He's Texas, and he's libertarian, and he's curmudgeon-y, and he's that. But he's also extremely generous and extremely gracious, and would take a bullet for you.
Let's back up into starting strength for just a second.
Yeah.
People who don't know starting strength, their impression is the funny squat stance, like the low bar, eyes down, basically.
Yes, sir.
Squat, and then there's just a lot of, I don't know, kerfuffle is not really the right word, but there is a whole lot of negativity in the rest of the strength community.
Absolutely.
Around Ripito. What about starting strength and Ripito was appealing to you?
Yeah, that's a good question.
At this point, those of you who may not have a background in strength and fitness may wonder why talking about Mark Ripito and his starting strength method is at all controversial. Here are a couple of important points to know. In 2005, Ripito self-published a training book called Starting Strength. As Matt tells us a little later in the conversation, the focus of the book was more on the starting part, for people who had just decided that getting stronger was a good idea. If most people in the strength world only know one thing about starting strength, it's that the squat stance it recommends is not what most people have been taught, especially most competitive powerlifters. Those are people who compete locally, regionally, and internationally in the squat, bench press, and deadlift. They might not know anything else about starting strength, especially who that recommendation was actually for, beginners, and why it is even being suggested.
So if I go back to the late 90s, his Olympic lifting coach at Wichita Falls Athletic Club at the time, who hasn't been his Olympic lifting coach for 15 years now, was a friend of mine. It was one of these guys that kind of directed me towards reading all of the Soviet books of the late 90s about training. When communism fell in the late 80s and early 90s, all those guys came over to America and became professors, and they had written books for the Soviet Union for their sport. And those books got translated into English, and we started to realize that those guys were like decades ahead of us. They had taken, communism is a horrific form of government. It creates amazing athletes, right? Because
you can focus on, you can recruit early, you can
of course,
do all
you do
that
anything
stuff.
you want. It's all state-sponsored stuff. And when you're an 11-year-old Chinese girl who misses her snatch, your entire family's out on the street.
Right.
So it's a pretty good incentive to make sure you get it.
Yeah.
Right? Beyond just the communism part, you started to realize that, man, they've got some training methodologies there. They're thinking about this in more important, deeper sort of ways than we are. And so that started that education. And so when Ripito wrote Starting Strength in 2005. So Starting Strength is the best-selling fitness book of all time.
Right.
You go right now, it's still #1 on Amazon. Here it is, it's 2018. It's still #1 and has been since it came out in Amazon. So he has sold just under 1 million books at this point, I think about 750,000. And has self-published it. So that's another interesting thing. So the guy who published the book himself and has sold almost 1 million books. The book is very physics intensive. And so it looks at strength training in a way no one had ever identified before Ripito exactly why we squat this way. So we knew powerlifters squatted a specific way. Now we knew there were certain things powerlifters did, like real wide stance. They would often put the bar high. Some of them put it low, it just depended on the stance, right? And there were certain things we saw, and a lot of times it was just like, that's what you do. But no one had ever said, this is why you do it. And Ripito was able to take his knowledge and his extremely high IQ and his knowledge of physics and start to figure out why. Now, what the why was in 2005 has been refined a lot by now the 3rd edition in 2018. The other thing that I think that most people miss out on and don't fully understand is that what Starting Strength is geared for, the name of the book is Starting Strength.
Right.
It's geared to get normal people, general population people, generally strong, which is not the same thing as to lift the most weight, which is what powerlifters are trying to do.
Yeah, it's not really for an intermediate or advanced athletes.
Right. So
exactly.
Right. So the difference is this: the method with which we teach the lifts, we would use for intermediate and certainly general population advanced people. But when you become competitive, so when I say intermediate and advanced, what I mean is we identify novice and intermediate and advanced in Starting Strength based on your ability to recover from workout to workout. So a novice can put weight on the bar every single workout for a while. They can go in and they can squat 3 sets of 5 at 115 pounds on Monday and 120 on Wednesday and 125 on Friday and 130 the next Monday. And as long as they can go up every single workout, why would you train any other way? There's no reason to do any other program. There's no reason to do a block training program or a West Side program or 531 or anything that takes longer than one workout to make progress, because you can make progress every workout. Now we all know that doesn't last forever. At some point it stops. Otherwise we'd all squat 1,000 and we don't. So the question is, when you can't make progress every workout anymore, then Starting Strength defines you as an intermediate at that point. And so when you have to make progress weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, you are an intermediate athlete. And at the point that you can no longer make progress monthly and you need a multi-month program to basically set PRs, you're an advanced lifter. It doesn't mean that you're a power lifter, which is different, right? Because we got a bunch of 52-year-old guys who are advanced lifters, but they're not competitive power lifters. Now, so this is why that matters. Starting strength uses 3 primary criteria from a physics standpoint to explain how we get strong, and it's really simple to understand. Number 1, we perform the lifts in a way that uses the most muscle mass. Simple. Number 2, we use the most weight possible. Air squats don't get you as strong as 400-pound squats, right? Number 3, the greatest effective range of motion, because we're trying to get you generally strong. Now, what powerlifting does is it gets rid of that third one. Powerlifting says, if I'm a powerlifter, I want to move the barbell the least legal range of motion.
Right.
I want a big arch on the bench press, wide grip, touch my belly and throw it back. But that doesn't necessarily make me generally strong. That's not the way I'd want my mom to bench press.
Right.
I want my mom to get generally strong, which means I want a big range of motion for her, right? So the squat is the same thing. A sumo deadlift is the same thing. We take a lot of shit about the fact that we don't like a sumo deadlift. If you're a power lifter that lifts in a federation that allows sumo deadlifting, you should probably sumo deadlift because it's mechanically and from a physics standpoint advantageous to do so.
For most people.
For most people, right? Yeah, sure, right. Tall, long legs, short torso. It's not.
Yeah.
You're gonna be better as a conventional.
I'm one of those guys that looks like they ought to be able to sumo. And
and you can conventional better.
It's horrible.
Sure.
Yeah.
The thing is, a sumo deadlift works for the most part identical muscle groups as the squat, but we already have your mom's squat and we already have your dad's squat. So I want to have him conventional deadlift because I want to get his back strong.
Right.
And in a sumo deadlift, anybody knows this that's watching you. In a conventional deadlift, your back is more horizontal, and in a sumo deadlift, your back is more vertical. Well, a more vertical back is a back that's not getting worked as much. Now, if I go to the kind of physical therapy crowd, they don't like conventional deadlifts. They're like, well, your back is at this horizontal angle. You're going to destroy your back. You're going to shear your back in half. You're going to give yourself spondylolisthesis. Only that doesn't actually ever happen.
Right.
And we don't let people conventional deadlift with rounded backs. We teach people how to actually conventional deadlift with an extended, flat back. And so the nice thing is that we can go, look, if you want a sumo deadlift or wide stance deadlift or wide stance high bar deadlift, wide stance squat or wide stance high bar squat, and you squat 800 pounds raw, that's awesome, do it. We're not telling you that a starting strength squat is better for you as a competitive lifter to do it that way. What we're saying is, for a 45-year-old working executive that wants to train 3 days a week and just get generally strong and healthy, from a physics standpoint, this is the way that's going to do it better than anything else, right? I always got sick. I remember being in high school when I was a high school teacher, and I would see high school Texas powerlifting, and you see these strength coaches in Texas putting their 15-year-old kids in bench shirts and squat suits. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it doesn't make
They don't
any
need to be
sense.
in bed. They need to just get generally strong. That's what they need to do. And at some point, if they decide to become competitive powerlifters and competitive geared powerlifters, they can learn to use that stuff.
As teenagers, putting on gear, you're gaming the system.
Of course.
It's a circus lift.
Yes, it is for anybody, right?
Yeah, it is for anybody, but
Yes.
particularly for
Right.
kids who are actually just trying to get strong.
Right, and what's the point for most of those kids? They're doing competitive powerlifting in the off season from football or wrestling.
Right. So the idea should be that they're getting stronger
I just
for
want
their
to get
sport.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I want it to carry over, and we know that a stronger athlete, there's really no sport that doesn't benefit from more strength, even endurance sports. There's obviously a law of diminishing returns there.
Yeah.
I can't go run cross country and be 270.
Yeah.
But if I'm a 140-pound kid running cross country, and I've got a squat of 100 pounds, and I take that 140-pound kid 1 year with a squat of 100 pounds, and the next year he weighs 150, and I put 10 pounds on him, but doesn't squat 100 pounds anymore, he squats 250. He's a better distance runner.
Right, exactly. A thing that I have noticed too, that I think fits into what you're saying, is in a dozen years of creating media to help educate people, you cannot be basic enough for most people.
That's right.
You can't break things down.
Yep.
To their most basic level,
That's
the
right.
most granular level for most people.
And it's an important communication skill that people have. If you're able to do that, the best assignment I ever had in college was I had to do a 5,000-word book report. I did this 5,000-word book report, came in, whole class did it. We came in and the teacher said, all right, now you've got 2 days. Take the 5,000-word book report and turn it into a 1,000-word book report.
Right.
I had to cut 80% of the book. It was really hard, so all the fluff has to go away now, right? Well, Ripeto's really good at that, and we're really good at that with the lifts, and we're able to. And then this is the other thing: everybody wants to not be a novice. Like if I'm a classical guitar player, I don't want to be a novice classical guitar player. I want to be a professional classical guitar player. Only it's not the case in weightlifting. When you're strength training, if I could go back, so my best squat again, my best raw squat is a 605 raw squat, 725 deadlift. Those are my best. So again, decent numbers, but certainly not great numbers. Let's say 725 deadlift. If I could deadlift 725 on Monday, and 7:30 on Wednesday, and 7:35 on Friday, and 7:40 the next Monday, I would kill somebody to do that. Right? I eat dog shit to do that. But the thing is that every single person who's a novice can actually do that. Yeah. And everybody tries to get excited about not being a novice. I want an advanced program. No, you don't. You don't want an advanced program. I don't want to have to train 3 or 4 or 5 months to make PRs.
Right.
I would love to be able to make a PR on Wednesday from Monday. So if that's the case, just train that way until it doesn't work anymore. And that's the simplest way to train. So it's the starting strength. Most people think starting strength is a program. It's not. It's a method of lifting. The starting strength program is what we call the novice progression, which is just squat, bench, press, deadlift, and if you're young, power clean. If you're not young, you don't power clean, you just deadlift. And you just go up so you do squat, press, deadlift one day, squat, bench, press, deadlift the next 2 days later. Squat, press, deadlift, squat, bench, deadlift. And the weight goes up every single workout for as long as possible until it can't. And when it doesn't, then the programming has to get a little more complicated. But I want to keep it as simple as I can for as long as possible.
At some point you said, there's more that I can do with the online training.
Yeah.
And how did that turn into the business you have now?
Yeah, so the first thing that I had to do in online coaching was that in spite of the enormous growth of technology over the last couple decades, almost everybody doing online coaching utilizes spreadsheets, Excel or Google spreadsheets, and email. And I got to the point where I had 130 clients, and I was getting about 250 emails a day.
Holy crap.
All with videos to break down.
Yeah.
And I said, this is not scalable.
No.
And what I knew I didn't want to do is I did not want to lose service. See, I want to online coach, which means the way we're going to define coaching is I want to make sure that I can get my lifters to move the way I want them to move based on a model. What most people call online coaching is in fact not online coaching, it's online programming. It's just a template, right? Which is fine. I'm not even shitting on that. What we have found is that programming is definitely a secondary issue when it comes to the online community. What makes people have the best progress is correct form and consistency. That's it. If you lift with correct form and you never miss a workout, yes, there are better programs and there are worse programs. But the problem is most people are doing the wrong program. Or even people who are doing the right program are doing the right program, but they're performing the lifts incorrectly. Or it's 4 workouts a week and they skip 1 workout every week. And it's like, I can't give you a program that's going to work for you if you're going to miss 30% of the workouts. It doesn't work that way.
Because you're not getting the work in that's
it's
appropriate
because
for that.
a good program is always going to build on itself. And so if you're missing, right? So that was the issue with like math class growing up, right? And you go back to the education model, math always builds on itself. So what you learn in kindergarten matters because what you learn in first grade is predicated on the fact that you remember all the stuff from kindergarten and so on and so forth. So that's why when you get sick, you get the chicken pox when you're a kid. Kids don't get chicken pox anymore, but we all did, right? So you get chicken pox, you miss 2 weeks, you gotta work really hard to learn the math because you can't just show back up and it doesn't make any sense. That's right, you missed it. Right?
Yeah.
So for us, I want to get my lifters to move the way I wanted to move, and I wasn't gonna lose that service. I had to figure out how to do that. So I had to figure out a better platform to be able to provide online coaching to our clients, better platform than Google Sheets and email. And so we started working with a company and had a lot of input on the way they developed called Fitbot. And a lot of online coaches are using them now. And we combine that with Starting Strength gives a certification. There's a certification process to become a Starting Strength coach. It has an abysmally low pass rate, around 2%. So,
really? Wow.
Yeah, so actually this weekend, coming weekend, I'm going to LA. We got 30 people in LA, and probably no one will pass. Maybe one passes. This isn't one of those certifications that everybody gets. You pay your money and you get it. Nobody gets this. And so we've had over 7,000 people go through, and there are 125 coaches, which means because we have sold 750,000 books, then the demand is extremely high and the supply is extremely low. If you want a starting strength coach and you live in the Bay Area, great, because there are starting strength coaches in the Bay Area. Or you live in LA, great. But what if you live in Madison, Wisconsin? What if you live in Cheyenne, Wyoming? What if you live in whatever, Oklahoma City? So you go to all these places. What if you live not in the United States and we only have 3 or 4 starting strength coaches who don't live here? So if you want to learn the lifts the way we do the lifts, and again, we are famous for being the ultimate form Nazis, that's what we are. You don't have any other options because there's only 125 of us. And so for me, I started to see, once I got the platform fixed, I was able to use a super clean, easy app where I could give my clients their programming on the app. They could upload videos of their lift directly on the app. It notified me as a coach. I would then break down their videos every single day, give them that feedback, that kind of X's and O's, football coaching sort of feedback for them. Once I got the platform cleaned up, it became scalable. And I went to Ripito in October of 2016, and I said, I can do this online coaching thing, and I'm doing it right now as Reynolds Strong, which I hate, a business based on a specific, what if I die? It's worthless. It's all based on me. I said, I can do this. I want to call it Starting Strength Online Coaching, and I want your blessing. And we worked out a royalty deal.
Like a licensing agreement.
Yeah, licensing agreement, exactly right. I thought he would say no, because he tends to hate online coaching, but I pitched it as this. You get 125 coaches, and you got 7.5 billion people out here who don't have access to one. What are you going to do for those people? Those people don't have access to one of these coaches. What are you going to do? And surely you believe that having online coaching from us is better than hiring the 18-year-old kid at Planet Fitness with the name tag on that says trainer. It's not the same thing.
Right.
And then I pulled up some videos of a client. I want to show you something, Rip. Here's a guy, he's 32 years old, squatting on day 1. Here's a squat with 155 pounds. And it's 6 inches high, and he's forward on his toes, and his knees are forward. It looks terrible. And here's a squat 3 weeks later, and it's great. Maybe it's not 100% great, but it's within 95% of correct. And I go, look, this guy didn't have any other option, and I fixed this in online coaching. He's never had a coaching experience from an in-person coach. We got a lot of American military men. We got a guy in Tunisia. We've got they don't have access. And so, you could see the wheels turning in his head. It was in his hotel room one night after a seminar in Omaha, and he said, you got to do this. You got to go. And so I spent the next from all of October, November, 16 hours a day, writing systems. It's me, systems and standard operating procedures, back to E-Myth, all that kind of stuff. Developing the business plan, attorneys, accountants, and now I had the capital to actually do it really, really well.
Because you sold the gym?
Because I'd sold the gym,
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And we launched December 1st of 2016, so just over a year. We now have a staff of 62.
Holy crap.
We have 900, I can check right now, 985 clients, I think, somewhere in there.
How many of those 62?
987, that's this year. I'm only going to let you say that. That's the last year of income.
So with that, the next pivot is really complete. After looking at his own online training business and seeing its limitations, including information technology, scalability, and how name recognition meshes with sustainability over the long term, Matt opted to license the Starting Strength name and methodology and built his new business around that. This may be the most less than obvious pivot of the story. Just from observation, I think that most individual online coaches aren't thinking about a comprehensive system that has value beyond their own participation, and I can't think of anyone else who's been willing to license intellectual property in this way. Based on the numbers Matt showed me, the first year it went exceptionally well.
Yeah.
So the income's really good.
So are these people working full-time as coaches? Are they part-time coaches?
Yeah, so most
some mix
some mix at this point. So in the beginning, everybody was part-time. I was only full-timer. I have now, I've got administrative assistants, I've got interns, I've got Nikki Sims is one of our most well-known female coach who does the seminars with us. She's my kind of number 2 in command. She's my head manager, and she's kind of first line of defense for all current clients and current staff members. I still try to handle all the sales. So if somebody needs to do a sales call, somebody's interested in our service, I think it makes a bigger impact. If I set up a Skype call with them, I still talk to everybody that's interested in our service. And then what we do
as
is
individuals?
Yeah. So if somebody's like, hey, I'm really interested in this, I say, hey, let's set up a Skype call this week, and I set them up. So I do a lot of those.
That's pretty high touch.
Yeah, and I'm going to do it as long as I can. Yep, right. That's the deal. So here's we charge at minimum. Our base package is $200 a month. So that's what some people are paying for an in-person trainer.
It's worth it then. Yeah.
Yeah. So because it's all. So I have to make sure it's high touch, white glove concierge enough that it separates us from the people charging $50 a month for templates. Because that's not us. Again, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just the next level of service.
I was going to say, because the sort of standard model is that somebody has some halfway decent lifts and they have a pretty good Instagram following or Facebook or whatever, and then they start doing derivative programming. And they call themselves a coach. And it's a model
you're
that
not
works.
shitting on a specific person.
I'm
so
not
you can shit
shitting
on
on
the
a specific
system.
person, but the margin associated with that is spectacular because they've put not a whole lot into developing
exactly right.
what's going on.
Sure.
And so from a margin standpoint, they're making more money.
Of course, yes. Yeah, so...
And there was no time you thought, I would rather just create my own derivative program.
No, man, because again, it comes back to, this sounds, I am not a saint in any way, shape, or form, but it comes back to doing the right thing. I believe in form coaching. I believe in coaching, which is not the same thing as programming. And so, like, I'm a coach. I have developed a good name for myself as a programmer. I'm a decent athlete, but there's so many other athletes that are better than me. By the way, one of the worst basketball coaches of all time is Michael Jordan. Being a good athlete does not make you a good coach.
No,
the best coaches are the most mediocre athletes because they had to work harder than anybody else. So Michael Jordan doesn't understand. It's not because Michael Jordan didn't have a great work ethic. It's because the payback isn't the same for everyone else that it is for him. He could put this level of work in and get this much back. The rest of us put this much work in and get 5% back of what he got, right? And that's the problem with hiring the guy that squats 1,000. I don't want to hire the guy that squats 1,000. I want to hire the guy that the first time he squatted 95.
Right.
He's got horrible anthropometry, like horrible segment lengths to do these squats and deadlifts and things like that. And he's gotten pretty damn strong with bad genetics. That guy's probably a lot better coach than the guy that can squat 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, one of the things that I've always said is never follow a freak.
Yeah. Because you're not a freak.
You're not a freak.
That's right.
Unless you're a freak, never follow a freak.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so I have developed a love for coaching normal people. That's the other thing, is that I have developed a love for coaching general population, middle-aged people, which is there's a massive hole in the industry for that right now. The standard model, the Instagram model, is I want good-looking people in their 20s wearing booty shorts and sports bras and long socks. And let me tell you a secret about people, about 25-year-old people who are good-looking. They have no money.
This is exactly true.
They don't have any money. And so our average client is 40 years old. It's business executives and female business executives, or business executives and their wives. It's upper class people. It's not millennials. Millennials need to get strong too. It's just I'm not interested.
That's not the problem. It's not when they were born.
No. It's right. It's attitude, personality, finances. I wouldn't have had the money to do this when I was 24 years old. And so I would far rather get a 45-year-old guy, generally strong, make his quality of life much, much better.
We were sharing some personal and business Instagram analytics about right here. Left this part in because I think you might find it interesting just in terms of who is interested in which kinds of training. Also, in just a moment, Matt talks about retargeting. And to define retargeting for you, if you go to a particular website and you're interested in something that they sell, websites will often leave a little cookie in your browser, and ad serving platforms will find that cookie and they will serve you ads kind of wherever you go on the internet that remind you that you were interested in that particular thing at that particular time, in the hopes that you would come back and buy it someday.
Mine's the exact same way. So mine's 85-15. So yours is 90-10?
It's 90-10, and it's majority 25-34, secondary 18-24, tertiary 35-44.
Yep, exactly right. Yep. Which, by the way, is also interesting for us. It's why our social media is not as important to us as it is with others. So,
because you're not at 18 to 24.
Because that's not who I'm advertising to, right? Yeah, we've got other modes of marketing that we use that are better for that demographic.
Do you use email?
I use email. We use retargeting with, I won't say exactly who we use, but we look at people. We know the type of, we do a lot of demographic study. We know who our demographic is, and we know who they like. We know who they follow politically, and we know who they follow religiously, and we know who they follow, what podcasts they listen to, and we know what sort of radio shows they listen to, and so we hammer on those things, and it works really well, right? And I like that. To me, I still like coaching good athletes. At one point, Strong Gym, we had 21 guys that could deadlift over 700 pounds. That's pretty damn strong.
That is pretty amazing, yeah. The environment that I just came from did not ever have that.
Yeah, and so
probably will never have that.
Yeah, and so
I have a friend who started a West Side style gym up in Chico, which is, you know where Chico is.
I know it. Yep, Northern California.
And he's got a stronger group in the year and a half or so that he's put into building that up than I've ever been in a gym with on a regular basis.
Yes. Yeah, so again, it's one of those deals where almost every powerlifting gym has their top 2 or 3 or 4 guys that are freaky athletes. Like you can have, so I'll give you an example because it'll be fun. So Jeremy Frey, most guys know Jeremy Frey. He was a member of our gym. I don't get to claim him as being like, yes, he was one of our 21. He was one of our 21 guys that deadlifted 700 pounds. He actually deadlifted 810. Right? I didn't make him strong. Right? Like that guy was strong when he got here. He came. You know, he was a strength coach. He became our head strength coach in our town, and he came, and the guy was super damn strong. However, we had a bunch of guys that used to be 400-pound deadlifters that we were able to turn into 700-pound deadlifters. Yeah. And I love that part of my life back then. But it's far more satisfying for me now and gratifying for me now to take a guy who has never squatted in his entire life, who has never deadlifted in his entire life, and take a middle-aged man and get him to the point where he's squatting 315 and deadlifting 405 and improve his quality of life so he can play with his kids and his grandkids and his stamina is better for work and in life and in sex and in marriage and all this. To me, that's more gratifying. And it's probably just the fact that I'm getting older. It's, you know, I just don't have a heart as much for helping 22-year-olds get strong. I like making people in their 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s strong now. So, and I think it's a better business model. So I also know that most of those athletes, Instagram athletes, do not want to work with 55-year-old people.
Yeah.
They're not interested in working with 55-year-old people.
No. Well, they don't have a frame of reference.
Right.
They don't have a common frame of reference. That's the problem.
That's our demographic, and it works great. And so we have coaches. I'm trying to think. My oldest coach I think is 67.
Jeez.
And my youngest coach is 21. And then we have a handful of interns who are right on the verge of either getting their starting strength certification or have just received their starting strength certification. I won't let them work for me until they have been a starting strength coach for a year. And so, and they're even younger.
So on
than
their
that.
own for a year, basically.
Yeah, they got to do this for a while.
So in person and online, or
they have to have passed the starting strength certification from RIP, that 2% pass rate. They have to have passed that for a year, because once they pass it, it's kind of like. There's a great movie on a documentary on Netflix called Somm. It's about sommeliers, wine guys.
I haven't seen it, but yeah.
It's incredible. If you want to know what it's like to become a starting strength coach, watch that documentary. It's the same thing. All these guys try to learn everything they can about wine, and almost all of them fail. It's just so damn hard. And by the way, this is the deal. We want a whole bunch of people to pass. We don't want 125 coaches. We want 2,000 coaches. We're just not going to dumb down the standard to get there.
Right.
Can't get it, man. This is the standard. This is what we all had to hit. So, so if they pass, they're guaranteed to start getting really good work. So the same thing, if you pass your Master Sommelier cert, you basically get your choice of any restaurant in the whole world you get to go work at. There's so few of them. And so as a starting strength coach, it's the same thing. Now, a lot of people who are not super familiar with starting strength, they're going to hear that and be like, that is insanely arrogant and crazy. And I get it. Only remember, 750,000 books. We got a bunch of people. We take a lot of shit from people who say that starting strength is culty. And let me just be clear. Starting strength is definitely culty.
Oh, yeah, but
There's no doubt.
But all of them are.
Yeah, it's fine.
All of them are. I
am a coach who likes getting regular people strong and helping regular people, and I'm a pretty good businessman, and I figured out how to take the niche that we own, which is a extremely small niche of the fitness, and we've crushed it. We've capitalized on that niche. And that's what I love about the American dream is all you have to do is own a little piece of this niche, and you can be successful. And we've been able to do that, and the vast majority of the world will never know who we are. We'll never know who I am or what my business is or who we work with or what books we've sold. But enough people do that we've been able to dramatically change the life of 62 of our coaches from a financial perspective. And we've been able to dramatically change the lives of 1,000 clients now of ours and make them strong and change their, make their quality of life better.
So your coaches are essentially they've got flexibility and some financial independence, and they're not going to a corporate job, or they're not going to
almost all of them at this point are full-time coaches, and they make it. I'll put it this way: my average pay for my coaches is significantly more money than I made as a school teacher.
Yeah, okay.
And it requires from them about 90 minutes a day. So you can make a very solid middle class living as a coach for me at Starting Strength Online Coaching for 90 minutes a day worth of work, which means they can then coach an additional 3, 4, 5 hours a day at the gym if they want to, and charge. Most of us charge $150 to $200 an hour.
Right.
And remember, I live in Springfield, Missouri. I don't live in San Francisco. We're recording this in San Francisco. That's not where I live. And so $200 an hour in Springfield, Missouri is 4 times the price of any other trainer in Springfield, Missouri. And yet I turn people away constantly who want to come because there's enough people that have bought the book and know Starting Strength and know me and know this stuff and so while Rich Froning has no idea who I am, right? And a lot of the big powerlifters now, I'm old enough that my powerlifting days and strongman days are mostly over. They don't know who I am at all, and that's fine with me. I don't have to be a celebrity in that world. I would love at some point, from a legacy standpoint, I would love to be talked about at some level as one of the better strength coaches in the world. I want to be on the team picture. I don't have to be number one. But I want to be like that guy. That guy.
You want about like this much of your head to be in the shot. Yeah.
I mean, that guy knew what he was doing, and there's kind of a piece of this too, where Bill Starr, the very first strength coach ever, was Ripeto's mentor. He's the guy that mentored Rip one-on-one.
Oh yeah, one of our original super training guys was a Bill Starr guy.
Yeah, he's
trained with Bill Starr. He's in one of the books.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. And so Starr kind of passed this stuff down to Rip, and Ripeto is I think 62 now, and he's kind of passed it down to me. And there's other people he's passed it down to as well. And now I'm trying to pass it down to my staff and my clients. We've got can I mention my podcast real quick?
Absolutely.
So I've had a podcast out now for about 6 months, 4.5 months maybe now, called Barbell Logic. And it's just a logical, reasonable, systematic walk through strength training. We start at the most simple things. Why strength? Episode 1. Why do we get strong? Why does that even matter? And we progress very systematically through strength training. And it's geared toward general population people. As we get further down the line, at some point we'll talk about competitive powerlifting. Actually, we recorded an episode on how to prepare for your first powerlifting meet. So we're starting to get that direction. I am doing that podcast. That is a selfish thing for me, because I wanted to be able to get out all this crap that's in my head and put it somewhere. And it was going to take me years to write the book. At some point I might be able to take the podcast, we've transcribed the podcast and use it as the beginnings of a manuscript for a book. But for me, I wanted my kids and my grandkids and to know what Grandpa Reynolds thought about strength training. This was the thing that I did my whole life. This is what I do. And so, however, for whatever reason, it's just exploded. And so, we're getting 150,000 downloads a month right now, and growing every month. Well. Yeah, and I think we've done 42 episodes, and we're a couple guys who aren't well known. I think I have 6,000 followers on my Instagram. Nobody knows who I am, and for whatever reason, our podcast is hitting on something, and so it's been good.
I'm going to break in here with an update. Matt and his podcast partner, Scott Hambrick, are merging their Barbell Logic podcast into the official Starting Strength podcast beginning in early March. My understanding is that they're bringing the same format of Barbell Logic, so the things that Matt is saying in the course of this conversation still apply, but they're going to apply to a different podcast, and they're going to be publishing twice a week, starting in March. This is literally the first time I've ever heard of anything happening like this with two similar but different podcasts, but it really makes a lot of sense to me. Man, who thought there'd be changes in the fitness and nutrition podcast space? Anyway, we're going to pick back up with Matt talking about conversations he has with his middle-aged athletes when they decide that they want to compete.
It's a different track. Competitive powerlifting is just a different track.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's competitive.
Yeah, exactly.
And that alone changes it.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And it changes it from, you've seen this from working with big powerlifters most of your life, and powerlifting yourself, is that I always talk about my clients, when they first start with me, they're weak and unhealthy. And we get them strong and healthy, right? I guess I can't say I actually make you healthier, right? I can get sued for that. But we'll say, in general, we improve your quality of life, we make you stronger, and you're probably healthier.
Yeah.
And then you have to make a decision. Do you want to keep getting stronger? Because if you do, the pendulum's going to start to swing away from healthy again, right? An 800-pound deadlift is not healthy.
No.
A 700-pound squat is not healthy.
No.
But any guy,
Competitive anything is pretty
competitive
much not healthy.
anything is not healthy. Nobody would look at the NFL and say that's healthy. That's not
Right,
healthy.
right.
You look, those guys are making $20 million a year, and it's worth the risk to them to get 9 or 10 concussions over the course of their life and die with Parkinson's disease. For the money, everybody gets that. But when it comes to strength training, we don't get it, right?
Yeah.
And it's because the money is not there. And so I have to have this talk all the time with my middle-aged guys. My middle-aged guys, they get their squat up to 405. They get their deadlift up to 500. And I go, look, a 405 squat and a 500-pound deadlift for a guy that's 45 years old is strong enough for anything that life is ever going to throw at you.
Yep.
Now, do you want to keep getting stronger? Because if so, we can do that. But here's what I want. I want you to sign up for your first powerlifting meet. And then we're going to start skewing this towards more competitive, and you're going to get the little hamstring, your nagging hamstring pulls, and you might tear a pec, and you're going to get bicep tendonitis, and like that kind of stuff just happens over time. And most of my clients, by the time they get there, they go, yep, I want to keep getting stronger. It's worth it to me now. And some of them don't. Some of them go, you know what? Maintain my strength, and I'll start doing mud runs with my wife. And we go, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that either, because you're strong enough. We did what you set out to do. So
That's awesome. Let people know where they can find you.
I am at startingstrengthonlinecoaching.com. I'm Matt Reynolds. Easy contact up there. On the social medias, I am Reynolds Strong. And for Starting Strength Online Coaching, we're at SS Online Coach. And that's on everything: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that fun stuff. And so Reynolds Strong, SS Online Coach. If you have any questions about form or just what we do, I never hard sell anybody. I'm not buying diapers with your money anymore, and that doesn't mean that I'm also not buying Bentleys with your money.
Exactly.
Right? Like I'm a very frugal. I live very frugally. But if you have questions, I'm happy to answer questions for free. If you want to shoot me a video of your squat and say, hey, tell me what you think of my squat, I'm happy to do that. Or I do that at some point. I may get 1,000 of those a day and can't do that anymore, but I can do that right now. So feel free to reach out. Just say hey, and ask any questions you have. I'm happy to answer them.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, and we're going to have some more whiskey, I think.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you.
I want to thank Matt for being on the show and for lunch and for the 21-year-old Redbreast Irish whiskey. Be sure to follow him even if you're not into starting strength, because his business sense is better than most people you're going to encounter in fitness or any other business. I can honestly say we walked into that pub strangers and left friends. On the next episode of the Less Than Obvious podcast, Jacob Ross walks out of school and, despite his best intentions, never goes back.
Did you make a list of pros and cons? The Franklin T, as they sometimes refer to it, and weigh those pros and cons on the initial decision?
I probably should have. I didn't.
You can find me on social media everywhere as @TheJimMcD. The show is @LessThanObvious everywhere but Twitter, where it's less than OBV. The show is available on most podcast platforms. Great reviews and ratings are much appreciated. Remember, being nice doesn't cost you anything, but it can be worth a lot to somebody else. I'll talk to you again next time.